What's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of Spring Practice Reports. It's March 13th. It's going to be probably a little bit of a slower week this week due to a lot of schools going on spring break. That they start these practices, get like 3 or 4 in, then hit spring break, then they come back. And some of these schools still have yet actually had a padded practice, but I was able to still pull some really intriguing notes from late last week over the weekend, and then a couple today before a lot of these schools kick off to their spring break. So let's check it out. All right, we are going to start with Arkansas, where Jacoby Criswell from North Carolina had transferred over there, and we were kind of hoping that he was going to go somewhere else, as we know KJ Jefferson is kind of the solidified starter there as of now. Well, Jacoby Criswell hasn't even gotten the backup job yet. Now, it is still early, but Cade Fortin, who was the backup last year, has returned and honestly has apparently played better so far than Jacoby Criswell. Now, that being said, Criswell doesn't really know the offense, and he is still learning it. Both him and Malachi Singleton, one of the freshmen that a couple of us like here, both did get some work with the second group, but they are, it seems, locked in to the 3 and 4 right now, with Cade Fortin locked in as the backup. There is a real battle here for the backup at the backup running back position here with Rashad Dubinion and A.J. Green. Now, Green was the second back today to take the field for Arkansas. Dubinion did the other day, so it seems to still be a battle behind who is going to take that backup spot behind Raheem Sanders, but definitely an interesting one to watch out for there. They did release the way that their wide receivers are set up, so I'm going to give you guys kind of that right now. On the outside, you have got at the X, you've got Samuel Mbake, Tyrone Borden, Andrew Armstrong, Landon Rogers. That is the current top 4 for them. On the other outside spot, Jaden Wilson, Isaiah Tesla, Chris Harris, and then Khalil Garrott. And then in the slot, Isaiah Satenia starting in the slot with Bryce Stevens, and then Cameron Bibby. So those are your right now early projected depth charts and how they've been running in the Arkansas offense. Moving on over to Clemson. Not much to go for here. There's not been a ton to report on. We do know this came out like right as I was recording the other day for Clemson, so I didn't get a chance to report on it. But Adam Randall is dealing with another issue in his knee. We don't really know any other updates, at least not that I've been able to find. So that sucks for a guy who we had pretty highly rated in our freshman supplemental guide last year. Obviously, we know did something to his knee. Came back pretty quickly if that was an ACL injury, but regardless, did something. Looks like he's had another setback so far. We'll see if hopefully he's able to bounce back from that, but haven't heard much else besides that. I did mention on the last episode that Christopher Vizzina was not necessarily impressing. Well, that has changed since that last episode. Garrett Riley has come out and said that he is fun to watch. He is a big kid and he is eager and mentally sharp. Riley did go on to say that while everything looks kind of fast to him and you'd expect that from a new quarterback, he does not seem fazed when he makes a mistake. He's very poised in the individual skill sets, and there's a lot to love about him. Again, he's been poised very on, which is really good for a young quarterback. So Christopher Vizzina getting some love from new offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. We'll see what that means for him moving forward. Obviously, this is Cade Klubnik's job. He's not going anywhere. Moving on over to USC. This one was kind of interesting to me. So their last practice was Saturdays. I believe they are on spring break this week. There may be one other practice, but there's not a lot that you get to see. So we're going to have to hope that the coaches report something. It's not open to anybody this week. As far as I know, I believe there's practice on Tuesday is what they were saying. Malachi Nelson is getting some Randall Cunnigham comps at USC practice, which is intriguing to me. I didn't think Malachi was that kind of level athlete, at least from what I remember. Randall Cunnigham was a pretty good runner, but that's what they've been kind of comping him to a practice. They've said that him and Caleb Williams have been linked at the hip. Malachi doing everything he can to learn from Caleb, which again, you love to see from a young quarterback, especially as talented as Malachi is, and wanting to learn that offense. We expect him to be the future of the Trojans offense. Early on practice reports, if they mean anything, especially with the possibility and the possible openings here at the Trojan wide receiver room, we could see Zachariah Branch playing a lot as a freshman. He just continues to impress. And obviously, his speed from everything I've read and listened, I listened to a podcast about it today. Talk about that. It's just, he's dynamic. You can see the difference of speed he brings on the field compared to everybody else in that wide receiver room. I honestly thought it might be Mekhi Lemon, who's that freshman that really kind of stands out for the USC Trojans. But it looks like Branch is that guy, and he has been extremely fun to watch from all the reports. Last but not least, the transfer from the other USC, Marshawn Lloyd, has apparently stood out in a major way at practice as well. Moving over to Oregon State. Now, this is going to be a long one. Again, Oregon State, one of my favorite schools because they do in-depth coverage of their spring practice. They don't kick media or other people out. They allow these people to stay in for a long time. It's a lot of fun to get these little nuggets here. So they did multiple different sets here, 11 on 11s, then they went to 7 on 7s, then 11 on 11s again. In the 11 on 11s, Ben Branson was the only one who practiced with the ones. He had 2 incompletions out of the 5, but looked good hitting players that were wide open. At the 2s, DJU went 3 for 4 and looked much better in this practice than he did the last one, which is great to see. Did not throw a touchdown, but did look a lot better. With the 3s, again, Aiden Chiles started off with a great pass and then did have an interception as well, but used his legs to make a great off-balance throw. Moving on over to the 7 on 7s, Ben Branson again, the only one with the 1s, went 5 for 6, looked much better in the 7 on 7s. With the 2s, DJU again looked really good, but did throw an interception. And then with the 3s, Aiden Chiles started off looking the best out of all of them with the 5-4-6 showing, including throwing another touchdown pass, this time to, I believe it was Trevor Pope. Just missed Zachary Card with another touchdown pass. So this was just this was without pads on, just a couple no real live hitting sessions. Then they went to 11 on 11 live hitting. With the live hitting, Ben Branson had one really nice play where he rolled out and hit Silas Bolden. With the 2s, DJU had a couple big plays, but then did throw another interception and missed on a screen pass to Valdez, throwing the ball at his feet. And then again, threw an overthrown pass that was intercepted by junior safety Ian Massey. Moving over to the 3s, Aiden Chiles gave up a big sack on first down, but then once again made a play with his legs, firing a pass to Zach Card for a big 30-yard game, continuing the connection those two have had through the first 2 practices. That pretty much continues. They did another set again. Aiden Chiles throws just misses. Karshawn Boshima fell incomplete on a deep pass that would have been a touchdown. According to them, again, they said, this is direct quote, guess who? Player of the day. Aiden Chiles yet again stood out in a massive way with a beautiful throw on a go route to transfer Joel Valdez, who scored. So I'm sorry, it was Joe Valdez who caught the touchdown earlier. So far, for 2 days in camp, Aiden Chiles is the only quarterback to have touchdowns, and he now has 3 of them. Don't think that he is going to start right off the bat, but, look, guys, we pumped him up. We said that he was going to be really good. I know there's some questions of his arm strength. I think he's got a pretty good arm. Just filling into his body. He's young, just turned 17 years old. I think the Oregon State Beavers have a lot of upside in this kid. I'll be very curious to see how long DJU, or if it's going to be Ben Branson, who's still running with the ones, how long those guys hold on to that job. Moving on over to Auburn, not a lot to report here with Auburn. The offense has been looking somewhat good. Hugh Freeze has them moving with this quick style offense. So with the ones, it was TJ Finley, Jarquez Hunter, and then the wide receivers were Javarius Johnson, Camden Brown, and Nick Mardner. With the 2s, Robbie Ashford, Damari Alston at running back, and the wide receivers were Coy Moore, Rivaldo Fairweather, and Omari Kelly. With the 3s, Holden Grenier at quarterback, Sean Jackson at running back, and the wide receivers were Jay Fair, Micah Riley Ducker, and Whit Johnson. One interesting note from this, they actually, I believe, have their spring game coming up soon. They're about to hit spring break. This was the last practice of that. Hugh Freeze actually has them practicing their celebrations because he wants them to be able to, do team celebrations if that's what they want, but get it done quick enough that they don't get a penalty. So found that interesting that they were practicing that. Moving on over to NC State, through the first full week of practice, while it looked like there was a quarterback battle early on, and MJ Morris apparently, by reports, looked good in the first practice. As the week went on, Brennan Armstrong has looked like the overall best quarterback in the room. Still no real standouts at wide receiver. Moving on over to Miami. So they have not yet had a padded practice. There are 3 spring practices in, and Tyler Van Dyke is not showing any signs of his shoulder injury that kind of through his second half of the season off there. He's looked really good. He has come out and said that he believes his shoulder is about 90 to 95% healthy. And again, there has been no sign of that, according to all the practice reports. Ja'Cory Brown and Emory Williams are battling for the backup spot. Brown has added some bulk, which has helped him look a little impressive there in the running game, harder to bring down. But his accuracy still needs to improve, according to the reports. While they say he brings plenty of elite traits, that position just cannot be taught. When you move over to Emory Williams, his accuracy has looked the best in the drill work and has been extremely impressive early on. When they started practice, his accuracy struggled a little bit, but then it just flipped right back around. There are a lot of people who believe Williams might redshirt this year, but he could eventually push for that quarterback 2 spot if Ja'Cory Brown doesn't take a step forward. Moving on over to the running backs, and both Corey Pereira and Austin Nace tweeted this out earlier today. Trevante Citizen's recovery from a knee injury sustained during fall camp a setback after the 2022 season. We had reports early on that he was not going to be here for spring, but that is definitely bad news to hear that he had a setback after the season ended. That is not at all what you want to hear. They've still not given any real update after that, so obviously a little bit concerning for a guy that we had a lot of hope for. We thought he was going to be really good. I believe he made our tier 1 at running back last year in our freshman supplemental guide, but having a setback at the end of the season is honestly really not good for that. Let's hope we get him back in fall camp. Don Chaney is coming off a hip injury, and he has been a little bit limited. Parrish, the leading returning rusher, hasn't practiced in full pads yet this spring at all. So he is also wearing, Chaney is wearing a brace. This running back room is it's a decimator right now, and it is not looking good. Mark Fletcher and Chris Johnson are expected to enroll in the summer. So we will not see either one of them until the fall. For the wide receivers, Colby Young and Isaiah Horton have done a nice job kind of building in that strength and conditioning, cutting down body fat, and building muscle. Young particularly has looked capable of possibly being the wide receiver 1 for the Hurricanes this year, according to the reports. Jacoby George is working as the first-team wide receiver right now and has made strides as well. Xavier Restrepo will likely be retargeted more heavy in this new offense, with the air raid principles being installed by Dawson Brashard Smith and Nathaniel Joseph bring in depth at the slot receiver position. At tight end, Jaleel Skinner is working with the second team for the most part, but has made strides in adding bulk to his frame. And Elijah Arroyo will factor heavily into the offense this year, but is still recovering from that knee injury. Moving on over to Florida State, they had their first padded practice, and it was their last practice before spring break. Both Jordan Travis and Johnny Wilson connected on a couple big plays in this practice. Wilson specifically looked good when Travis was targeting him. Trey Benson has been a standout at running back in the first few practices, had a couple impressive runs in this last practice. At Florida, Graham Mertz continues to impress in practice. He has really separated himself already from Miller, showing a lot of pocket poise and not bailing when the pockets start to get muddled. In fact, the reports are that he has shown great pocket presence and footwork even with defenders around him. It should be interesting to see if that keeps up. The big name that keeps popping up here, though, Florida. This is the 3rd practice in a row that one freshman wide receiver, Andy Jean, has been mentioned. His footwork and speed has been on another level, and the lack of depth at the wide receiver position could lead to some early playing time. In fact, the report was, and I already forgot his name, so I apologize, but the wide receivers coach and the speed coach for Florida was pretty much yelling at every wide receiver, and was when Andy Jean started, he just stopped and kept promoting and talking about how great Andy Jean looked. He has apparently impressed him. Billy Napier has talked glowingly about Andy Jean. I don't know that this means he'll be starter day one, but a name you definitely need to watch out for. We did not have him super high in the freshman supplemental guide, but there's not a lot of competition there at Florida. We saw how bad that room looked at times last year. Ricky Pearsall probably is the only one locked into a position. Andy Jean, being praised for his footwork and speed, could see some early playing time with Florida. Next up, SMU. Jordan Kerley and Romello Brinson are showing real connections with QB Preston Stone, and they have been by far the best wide receivers in camp. Kerley, the top standout. So definitely a name to watch with an offense we expect to be pretty good. Him and Preston Stone have just apparently connected, seem to have this otherworldly connection, according to reports. Moving on over to BYU, Kedon Slovis has reportedly looked good and slaying the ball all around. Take that what it's worth, guys. I know how we all feel about Kedon Slovis, but he is getting rave reviews. So right now, Aiden Robbins, who transferred in from UNLV, and Isaac Rex, who was one of the top kind of sleeper tight ends last year, a guy that we all liked at BYU, are both likely out all of spring. Wide receiver Parker Kingston, tight end Ethan Erickson, and wide receiver Hobbs Nyberg have been getting a lot of reps, and all three of those seem to be working well with Kedon Slovis, specifically Parker Kingston. So names to watch as we kind of don't really know what this BYU offense is going to look like this year. Moving over to Missouri in the last school of news for today. Cook is still out recovering from that shoulder surgery. Horn still dealing with an upper arm strain from the baseball game. They were hoping he was going to be back earlier this week. He is yet to make it back on the field. So Garcia continues to get the first team reps. He has been up and down, but there has been more good than bad, and the good has actually been really good. But backup Dylan Label has been pushing Garcia. He seems to grasp the offense and the speed of the game, and it doesn't seem to affect him. He's been praised quite heavily by head coach Eli Drinkowitz. Running backs Nathaniel Pete and Corey Schrader continue to battle for the starting running back spot, but neither seems to be pulling away from each other. Last but not least, Luther Burden and Mookie Cooper continue to impress at wide receiver. It looks like both are poised for improved receiving seasons this year. So that's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back hopefully 2 more times this week. We'll dive into some other schools that may be on spring break, but I haven't had a chance to really get to and find some reports for. We'll dig a little bit deeper into those probably on Wednesday. Until then, everybody have yourselves a great day. We'll be back again soon.